Okay, so this is Rasha. I'm going to show you guys how I shaded this assignment that we did for this week. And I'm going to just use the journal assignment that I did as our basic example for doing this. Kind of got a wonky view, but you can see all of it. And just going to go through the steps that I use and how I do this. I use the basic HB for my general areas. There we go. And it's a Kimberly. I use different brands because the pencils are different colors, so I can tell just by looking at the color which type of pencil it is. And then for most of my shading, I use a B. This one is a Faber-Castell, and I'm doing this upside down, so bear with me. See if I can get that in the light. There you go. And for basic blending, I use toilet paper, believe it or not. This is the really soft stuff. It's the Charmin Ultra Strong, if you want to be specific. And for my cleanup, I just use a basic Staedtler block eraser. That's pretty much all I use. I like being close to what I'm doing, and it's just for the outlines. And then get started here. I'm going to start with the HB pencil. I'm not going to use the B, and just go over the general areas overall wherever I want to map out my dark shading areas. I wouldn't have the hard lines like you see here. I would have cleaned it up quite a bit more than what you see, so soften it up and let the shading do all the work. We'll get started here and I can show you guys. I just do general overall shading, nothing too fancy. Just gives me my map out of where I'm going to want everything to go, and using a lighter pencil gives you the overall toning for the skin. You can blend it in really easy for your softer lights, but I usually start with my mapping. I'm using my general light, same spot that I've got my actual light source from, so it makes it easier for me to know where I want my light coming from. Obviously I would spend a lot more time than I'm going to in the video to actually make sure I get it all correct, but we're just doing a general overview here. Go through, get all this. And then go in there and just have my basic mapping. It's really soft. I don't push down, but I'll tear off a piece. You want a decent size, usually whatever you can wrap around the tip of your finger, and then I'll ball it up because I want it soft for this part. Just a little piece, nothing major. And I'll go in and I'll start shading. Now I'll do a circular motion to give me the softness, except where I know I want the darker lines. But you see it's quite messy, but I'm using smaller pieces, so I have more control. Just go in, and I try to avoid where I want the highlights until I absolutely have to hit them, but pretty much all the skin has some tone to it, so you want to kind of go over everything as much as you can, make it really soft, which you can already see that it gives it a really kind of soft texture to it. It's real simple. And you can just drag it out. The tissue will pick up quite a bit and carry it around. And now go in with the eraser. I do this in stages. It makes it a lot easier to remember where I want my shapes. And I'll just take the corner and go in on the body where I know I really want my highlights. You can erase a lot or a little. If you use a used edge, it won't take away as much, but go in, just in generality where I want those highlights to go. And then I'll go in, I'll take a fresh piece this time, a little bit larger, just doing general buffing, and I'll just wrap it around my finger here. Gives me more control once I have it on my nail, and then I'll go in and I'll just soften up those erase edges without going back into the highlighted space. It'll give you that kind of fade effect that you're looking for. The smaller areas are harder to keep that soft kind of glow, but that becomes more prevalent. I'll switch to the B pencil and start really defining where I want my shadows to be at. And go in. And this is where just knowing the shape that you're working with helps. But still not pushing very hard at this point. I'm just going in just a little bit for right now where I know I want shadowing. And knowing your light source will help you the most here, but you can put in little bits of shadowing that'll really help make those highlights pop. But then I'll take a new piece for this part, but I wrap it really tightly. I'm just using my nail tip as my blender at this point, so I have the most control over it. And unlike with the light parts where I did the circular motion, I'm doing a straight lines with this part because I want it to be very clean cut where these shadows begin and where they form as far as the shape goes. Now you can, if it gets too heavy, you can use some circular motion to blend it out if you need to. I'm just doing a quick run through on this, so. And you do want to try and blend as much as you can, at least with this technique. And I'll take a piece and I'll come in really quick and I'll erase that out. Not everybody does this. You don't have to. You can just erase at the end when you know you're done with that section, but I like to keep my lines clean all the way through. Just so I know exactly where I'm working. Now, if you erase too much, it's not a huge deal. You can take one of the pieces that you've already used to blend that's got a little bit on it, and you can go back over it. And it will still carry some of the graphite, so it will blend in really well. Now, this blending method, I think, is probably one of my favorites, at least for overall bodies or skin or anything that you want a really soft glow. But if you go into like the hair especially and the really tiny details and the face, and I think that the blending stumps probably work best. You get more detail out of those than you will this method. I'm going to go back in, make this a little bit darker, add that another level. I treat this a lot like you would a regular painting. You do it in stages. You don't do it all at once, especially with this kind of blending technique. You just go in and slowly add layer on layer to get the shadows and the highlights that you're looking for. I'll go in and smooth this out. And some of the sections, like the hands as well, where you have all those little details, using the blending stumps is also better, but I like to have those really soft silhouettes around the body. And just go in, and this one, I'm not bothering to use a clean one. I want to drag out those shadows in places I haven't shaded yet. I'm not doing the whole piece. Just for this, it would take me quite a while to get it to where I want it, but you can see the overall effect that it has, and as you go in and you add the different layers, you can see how more detailed it becomes. One of the things that I like about this that I learned in an earlier class is that there are no hard lines, especially on figures. It's all highlights and shadows, and that's where this method came in the most useful for me. But this is pretty much it. You could pay more detail to the hands, to the chest. There's a lot of details you can still add here. But this is pretty much it for now.